Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're gonna do a video here from Serious History. It is most epic upset in medieval history, Battle of Agincourt, 1415. Um, I don't think we've done a video from them before, but it should be interesting. As always, with these history videos, they are not gonna have every single little detail. Um, it's okay because we're not watching like a 4 hour long video, right? So they're gonna get it down to 17, just over 17 minutes here, and we're gonna learn the basics. And like I said, we haven't done a video from them before. I don't know what here to expect other than looks like it's gonna do that cartoony format, might be a little sarcastic. I'm good with it. I enjoy it. It makes it more interesting. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. I will link the video in the description along with a link over to Patreon and a link to how you can support the channel here on YouTube. Also, tonight, 5 o'clock, your all's time, we're going to do a live. So I'm excited about it. Join me for it if you can. And let's go.
Thank you to our Ko-fi supporters for helping us make this video. Today, we're going over the greatest upset in medieval history. It's August 15th, 1415, and a small army from England has arrived at the French port town of Harfleur. They're led by the newly crowned King of England, the 29-year-old Henry V, who's here on a mission. See, ever since his dad overthrew King Richard II, England had been divided, and when his father died, he inherited all of his problems. Nobles were still loyal to King Richard and were funding rebellions. The treasury was broke from wars with the Welsh. England was in desperate need of a king who could reunite the nation, and Henry decided that the best way to do this was to restart the 100 Years' War with France and take their throne as well. Henry has with him around 12,000 soldiers. His plan's simple. He'll claim a few French towns for England and sail back home a hero. Harfleur is his first stop, and he demands the citizens open the gates and surrender immediately. But for some reason, they don't listen. Henry begins a siege on the town on October 18th, and his trebuchets rip into the city walls. As he watches the destruction, the English king smiles at their defiance. Though he's young, he's faced much more formidable opponents in the past and has the scars to prove it. The French will regret ever challenging King Henry V. But what he thought was going to be an easy win drags on, and the French garrison at Harfleur fight back. Days drag into weeks, and the warm weather quickly turns the English camp into a swamp. Dysentery sweeps through Henry's army, and hundreds of his soldiers contract the dreadful disease. To speed up his conquest, Henry sends a challenge to the Dauphin, France's crown prince, to duel him in 1v1 combat, but he gets left on red with no answer. The king realizes he can't expect to win any battle with his entire army uncontrollably shitting themselves, so before all of his men contract the deadly doo-doo disease, Henry orders a full assault on the city.
As I enjoy this, that it's just kind of in plain terms, very sarcastic. I like it. I don't know if you guys do. Do you guys have that show? Like, you might have your own version of it, of Drunk History, where they recreate like historical um scenes and stuff with usually really good actors. Um, and but it's like voiced by usually a comedian who's drunk. Um, it's absolutely awesome. If you haven't seen it or you don't have like a UK version of it, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to maybe react to some of the ones that pertain to the British and the UK, because there's obviously several in our version of it, just the regular drug history of it here. Um, because it could be pretty fun to do. Or even if you guys do have a version, we could do that too. It might be fun to see something I haven't seen before. Even though I haven't seen all of the drug histories, I do like it.
Men storm the walls, and they're barely beaten back. Spooked by the attack, the citizens of Harfleur decide to give up if no reinforcements arrive by the 23rd of September, and when no help arrives, they officially surrender on the 22nd. Henry had claimed his first official victory on French soil, the first English victory here in nearly 60 years. But he's distracted and can't celebrate. He had grand plans of quickly conquering the French coast, but he'd spent nearly the entire campaign season on just one tiny port town. His advisors urge him to sail home. It's growing late in the year and half of his army is sick. But Henry decides that Harfleur is not enough and he must do more. He sends his sickest men back to England and stations another 1,000 or so men to defend his newly acquired town. His army's now cut down to about 6,000 soldiers. 5/6 of his army are archers, and the rest are men-at-arms with no mounted knights. There's no way he can take another town with a force this small, but what he can do is rub it in the French king's face that he did steal this one. So Henry decides to take his remaining men and march them through France to the English-held port of Calais. He hopes this parade will establish his authority for everyone to see. But little did the young king know, the French were watching his every move, waiting for the perfect opportunity to go for his head. Henry and his small army set out from Harfleur on October 8th. They expect the journey to Calais to take around 8 days and bring the appropriate amount of food with them. In the shadows, a growing French army stalks the king and his men, and they realize he's heading towards the river Somme. The French quickly destroy all of the bridges over the river and defiantly block Henry's path. He's forced to travel south trying to find a way to cross, all the while the food supplies for his army dwindling and dysentery continuing to spread through his ranks. After marching for weeks, Henry finally leads his men across the Somme miles downstream from where he had originally intended to cross. They had long run out of food and are starving, but at least they're now marching on a path that will take them directly to Calais. But just when Henry thinks he's in the clear, the French army slowly begins to materialize in front of him. One by one, an endless stream of mounted knights ride out and form a line. The swarm of Frenchmen is unending, and eventually the opposing force is so vast, it's clear to everyone that the English are outnumbered at least 2-1. Henry turns to look at his men, and they are a sorry sight. They're dirty, tired, sick, and starving. In fact, his archers, who by this point were nearly all stricken with dysentery, had removed their pants after growing tired of constantly shitting themselves and were now standing there naked from the waist down like a mob of medieval Pooh Bears. An English man-at-arms looks out at the massive French army and begins to panic. He starts shouting how badly they're outnumbered. Henry turns to his men and quickly replies, "I would not, even if I could, have a single man more than I do. Do you not believe that the Almighty, with these his humble few, is able to overcome the arrogance of the French, who boast of their great number and of their strength?" He swears to his men that he'll accept no ransom for his life. If they fall, he will die with them. The words of their king steel the English, and they prepare to fight. Henry quickly sends his accompanying priests to hear the final confessions of all his men, and the French watch from across the battlefield as the English soldiers kneel before the priests and confess their mortal sins. The last of his soldiers crosses himself and stands, and Henry marches his men out onto the battlefield. Both armies lock eyes in silence, neither side willing to make the first move. As the French shift their position, Henry expertly moves his small line to match them. As they jockey for position, the minutes stretch to hours, and soon night falls. The French begin to retreat back to the nearby villages, while Henry's men watch them in complete darkness. Suddenly, the sky opens up and freezing rain begins to fall. Henry and his men are quickly soaked to the bone, and they rush to take shelter under the nearby trees. As they listen to the sound of the wind and rain, they stare off into the cold night and see the warmth of the French bonfires flickering in the distance. The wind carries sounds of laughing and eating, which makes the men groan in envy. Henry orders his men to maintain complete silence. He announces that anyone who makes a single sound will have their ear cut off. As his men try their best to sleep through the storm, the king and his commanders stay up to carefully plan the battle to come. He's outmanned and fighting on enemy soil. Henry knows his plan must be perfect, or this miserable night will be the last for everyone here. The sleepless king watches the sun rise and carefully puts on his helmet. Affixed to the top is a shining gold crown with the marks of England and France. Like a lighthouse in the dark morning, the sun's rays dance proudly on the shining crown. The king will be unmistakable on the battlefield. He will not hide or command from the rear. He will fight and is prepared to take on anyone who comes at him. Henry mounts a tiny gray horse and rides out onto an area of the battlefield that he's chosen based on his recon missions throughout the night. The rain has turned the field into a thick sea of mud, and he brings his men to a spot where the forest on both sides of the field narrow in towards him. The king then begins to position his army. He places his men-at-arms in a thin line in the center. He positions his archers to each side and has them drive wooden stakes that point outward in front of their line. Throughout their march, Henry had forced his archers to make and carry these giant wooden stakes. At the time, the archers didn't know why they were forced to do this, but now it's very clear. If the French cavalry attempts to charge their position, they'll impale their steeds in the process. Henry then turns and sends 200 of his best archers to hide in the woods that line the battlefield. With preparations complete, he takes his position in the front and center of his army. With his banner flying in the wind, he waits. The French take their time arriving on the battlefield and begin lining up in a somewhat unusual formation. See, what Henry's unaware of is that as word spread through France of his march to Calais, more and more dukes and lords raced to join this French army. They all wanted the glory of defeating the English king, and because they outranked the professional soldiers who already were preparing for this battle, the nobles changed the battle plan and demanded to be placed on the front line. It'll now be a race to see who can take the king's head. The French front line of lords and nobles continues to swell, and as they push their way in front of each other, they confidently stare down the hill at the trapped English army. Back at the English line, Henry rides in front of his men, preparing them for battle.
Think to Edward III and the Black Prince and their great victories in this land. The story of our glorious battle today will soon forever join them. Oh, and for you archers, the French told me that if they win, they're going to cut off the fingers you use to draw your bows, so you better, fight hard and stuff. How dare they! What does this mean? I don't know.
Henry and his men stand ready for combat, but as the sun rises higher into the sky, the French seem completely uninterested in fighting. They have food, comfortable accommodations, and they know more troops are rushing to join this battle. Every day they wait, they grow stronger, and the English army grows weaker, and they know it. Henry realizes the French plan and has to think fast. He must force them into a fight, and with time running out, he has no good options. His army can't last another night in the rain, so he decides he'll risk everything here and now. He orders his men to prepare to advance. It dawns on the English that they'll be marching directly towards the enemy, and they all begin falling to their knees in prayer. They kiss the ground, surrendering their lives to God, and await the command. Henry watches and waits until the French are distracted by their lunchtime activities, and when he sees an opening, he shouts to his men,
St. George, this day help thine own!
His men shout a battle cry, and they quickly lift their stakes out of the ground and begin marching forward. As they move, Henry watches his enemy on the hill closely. His army's completely defenseless, and a cavalry charge now would instantly wipe them out. Every step inviting death, Henry and his men bravely trudge forward. A few French knights spot the English on the move and cannot believe their eyes. What kind of madman would do this? The French quickly begin to prepare themselves, but by the time they're ready to attack, it's too late. The English are now just 300 yards away from the French position, and they rush to replant their stakes into the ground. Henry quickly gives the command, and his archers unleash a torrent of arrows directly into the enemy line. The French knights are well armored, but taken completely by surprise. Arrows pound into their heads and chest, and the blunt force trauma of being struck by the powerful English longbow at this close a range knocks them off their feet. On instinct, the mounted French nobles at the front lead a counterattack, and they barrel towards Henry and his men. The mud is thick, and the horses' hooves get sucked deeper and deeper with every step. With the fire of 1,000 suns in their hearts and bowels, the English archers let loose wave after wave of arrows into the French knights, killing their horses and knocking them to the ground. They try to stand, but their heavy armor pulls them deeper and deeper into the thick mud, and many begin to helplessly drown. The surviving French horses, now spooked by the storm of arrows, begin to turn and trample the French men-at-arms who were following the knights' charge. Like bowling pins, they're knocked down and are quickly stomped face first deep into the mud by the hooves of the terrified horses. A small group of French knights do make it to the English line, but just as Henry had planned, many of their horses impale themselves on his wall of stakes. As more and more knights reach their line, the English archers throw down their bows and pick up the tools they'd use to craft their wooden defense and prepare for close combat. Henry gives the signal and chaos erupts as the entire English line pounce on the French knights. Mud is flying everywhere, and the archers are desperately driving their makeshift weapons into their opponents. Henry leads from the front, taking on every French noble that rushes in swinging at his head. The French vanguard behind the knights begin their charge and are met with heavy arrow fire from the archers hidden in the woods. The French men-at-arms who survived the fleeing horses and the hidden archers finally make it to Henry's army. They're completely exhausted, but their numbers are still great, and like a wave, they crash into the English men-at-arms. Henry's line is pushed back by the massive bodies, and feeling the desperation of the moment, Henry calls on his men to fight on. His men fight back with the desperation of trapped animals as the French are funneled by the tree line into the English line. The fighting is barbaric, with the English archers targeting any opening in the French armor they can find. Knives and stakes are driven into the eye holes of the French knights as they fight for their lives with their makeshift weapons. Henry looks up the hill and sees more French soldiers waiting to join the battle.
Hold the line, men! We must be prepared for their final charge!
Hey, Jean. Truth or dare? Dare. Okay, I dare you to show your butt to the English.
What the fuck? Oh, mon Dieu, that was so embarrassing. The French nobles who desperately wanted to be the ones to defeat the English king had ordered a large portion of their army to wait on the hill. But they had vastly underestimated Henry, and after 3 hours of brutal fighting, a pile of slain dukes and lords lay at Henry's feet.
Yo, it is amazing. Like he did this all. Like he lost so many men just out of like a vanity project for sure, just to try to get some like respect from his own people, which is pathetic. But I will say, after that pathetic mess, and then like finally getting a victory and still refusing to go home and like at least let your dudes get well to keep charging on with a bunch of sick guys. Not smart either. but but like once he got there, the fact that he was just like, okay, like I'm gonna go in first, I'm gonna die with you guys. Like that's legit. That's cool. You gotta respect that much. And the fact that he's still fighting on the front line, was able to like kill off a bunch of people and live through it. And I mean, just to even get to this point here is a feat. It really is.
The English line had held, and they defiantly stand with their king gasping for air. The French commander of the rear guard stops sending men down the hill into the bloodbath, and the English take the surviving nobles and soldiers near them as prisoners. Henry, catching his breath, looks at his captives and then out at the French reserve army on the hill, trying to anticipate their next move. They're still outnumbered, and they've taken losses as well. If they send another wave down, can his men fight on? Suddenly, chaos breaks out behind him. A French lord and a small contingent of troops had managed to sneak behind the English.
Ooh.
They're attacking the wagons that hold his crown, a piece of the true cross and all of the treasure Henry had claimed on this expedition. Realizing they may be surrounded, his men begin to panic. The king needs to think fast. Without a stroke of genius, the effort and lives of his men could all have been for nothing.
Think, Henry, think. What should the King of England and France, the monarch chosen by God, do at a moment like this?
You, kill all the prisoners!
Sire, I do not think that is an appropriate thing for us Christians to do to fellow
I'll do it! Ah! 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 Ah!
Oh yeah, that did it. Many of Henry's soldiers refused to follow this order, but some reluctantly began to cut down the prisoners they'd taken. The lords begged for their lives as they're unceremoniously executed. The French, watching from the hill, are horrified that the English king could commit such war crimes on fellow Christians, especially since it turns out the people looting the wagons were just local villagers, and the French army had already decided to give up by this point. The battle is over. Henry had lost 600 men in the fight, but his opponents had lost much, much more. Among the 5,000 Frenchmen who fell at Agincourt were most of the French nobility, including 3 dukes, 90 barons, and almost 3,000 knights. In a single battle, Henry had crippled France's leadership for decades to come. A herald from the French army comes down the hill, and Henry asks him if they accept his victory.
Yes, we accept it! The victory is yours!
What is the name of that castle there?
That is the town of Agincourt. Because all battles ought to bear the names of the nearest fortress to the place that they were fought, this battle will now and forever be known as the Battle of Agincourt. It's actually pronounced Agincourt. Battle of Agincourt!
Henry goes on to become unstoppable in the war against France, and by 1420, he has conquered his way to Paris. The French king Charles VI is forced to recognize him as regent, and Henry marries his daughter and is declared the next heir to the throne. He returns home and is celebrated by his people as a hero.
Is okay. So they were fighting in a battle where they were killing each other anyways. And because he killed the people they took as prisoner, they just gave up even though they had more people. Just because they were like, oh my gosh, he killed the priest. Like, that's crazy. And then he ends up marrying the king's daughter. Royalty is wild.
Despite being so young, Henry had accomplished a lifetime of achievements. He'd united his people, legitimized his rule of England, and soon would be crowned King of France as well. But just before Henry's able to become the most powerful monarch in Europe, he dies of dysentery at the age of 35. Just 2 months later, King
I mean, I know people didn't live that long back then. It's 14, 15. So at like 35, you were probably what we would consider somebody like an 85-year-old today. But to be able to think on your toes and like do all that stuff, like that is crazy. Crazy. If you think about like people today, kids today, I mean, people that don't even like move out of their parents till they're 35, right? I mean, it's just crazy. Crazy.
Charles VI dies, and Henry's young son, Henry VI, becomes the only British king in history to also hold the title of the King of France. While his son's rule in France was almost immediately challenged, Henry V is still widely remembered as one of the greatest kings of England, largely in part because of the upset he pulled off at the Battle of Agincourt.
It's actually pronounced Battle of Agincourt.
Ah. Well, that was crazy, guys. Um,
Thank you to
yeah,
our Ko-fi
I didn't know about that. Kind of came up on some history stuff that I was looking at, but I'm glad that I watched it because, I mean, it's an epic story. You have those throughout history, right? Of where like these people win a battle that they had no business even being in to start with, that they were undermanned, in this case, sick, hungry, tired, and like they still, that desperation, I guess. But yeah, really good story. If you guys know any other like history things you want me to check out, comment it below. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, hit the notification, the bell to get notifications when videos pop up. Do it every day, usually 2, 3 times. But yeah, great video. I enjoyed it. I'm actually going to subscribe to Serious History right now. And maybe we'll get another video from them here soon. But thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome, awesome day. Hopefully, I see you later in the live. Thanks.